rate is a very critical metric to track, particularly when you're sort of going from being blind on your video performance to starting to have metrics coming in, understanding where users are starting to encounter critical failures in video playback, because often those are occasions where a user may not necessarily reload the page, they may abandon at that point, so certainly trying to avoid those sort of problems, and sort of from that also trying to understand when you have any regressions in your video players or your video stack that may start to impact certain platforms or browsers or things like that.
Rebuffering rates are obviously a very important and very important metric to ensure that the quality is where you expect it to be. The amount of plays is obviously a nice metric to ensure that the content is being or the platform is being utilized to expectation. But then maybe a half step deeper, things like stream switching, and understanding, yes, the video it played quickly, how well was the experience? And that's kind of what we're talking about today specifically is, yes, everything worked, but how well did it work? And how much can we understand without every user calling us and saying, yes, this was a great experience?
Ours is rebuffer is number one, start time's number two. The only reason they're in that order for us is because we have a subscription service business, so they're not just going to bounce off, right? So like once we get them in there, we want to keep the experience a little higher. We're also maybe a little weird that stream switching is really important to us. We have coaches that are analyzing minute details in the film, so if they expect high quality and it drops, even just temporary HLS for all of our film, and comes back up, that's actually a bad thing. We'd rather take a buffer hit on that and not have that disorienting experience. If their quality actually needs to drop because their bandwidth is down, then that's totally fine, but like we don't want those momentary blips. So like short stream switches are really bad for us. So we try to track that also.
Yeah, I've been looking at our research that if the people switch a lot between levels, they stop watching the content to watch the quality. Startup time is something that's really hard for us because we do have pre-roll, and this hurts a lot, the startup time.
We're all talking about a lot of the same metrics here, but in general, it's still a big problem in the industry of actually defining how exactly you measure each of these metrics, and is the startup time that we're measuring the same as what anyone else is doing, or the same with understanding what a rebuffer is, or what any of these sort of metrics actually mean and exactly how they should measure it. So I think it's good that there's groups like the CTA working group that are getting together now to try and actually define standards and write papers around suggested ways to actually measure these, that hopefully eventually the industry at large and multiple vendors can actually implement in the same way, so that we all have consistency when we're talking about what these things actually mean.